How's it going, Broncos fans? It's Cameron, your host, once again with a new video. This video, we're going to be talking about my 2026 NFL draft board and who I think the Denver Broncos should select to help with some of the team needs they have. Just kind of went in order of position, uh, not in any particular order by need, but just kind of goes in order here. So first up, we got running backs that I wanted to talk about. With running backs, they got this one. I wouldn't say is a relatively deep uh draft at running back, but there are quite a few good names. You do have the two running backs from Notre Dame, who I don't think will be on the board anywhere close to when the Broncos draft, so I left them off. But at the top of my board, for where the Denver Broncos draft, I have Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas. He did really good with a very bad O line. He's a very good runner. He can do everything you need to do. You got Roman Hemby out of Indiana, who I mean they just won the national championship. He's pretty good running back. You got Nicholas Singleton from Penn State. Adam Randall from Clemson, Robert Henry Jr. out of UTSA, and Chip Trayanum out of Toledo. Those two are some running backs out of smaller schools who are in the draft debate. However, you could get those two in the later rounds. I think they would do good. Might need to let them develop a little bit coming out of a smaller school. Then you have Jaquez Moore out of Duke. Duke did surprisingly well on offense this year, and that's why he's on my draft board, is that he could be a sleeper. He could possibly come in, might take some time to develop, or he might be really good right out of the gate. Um, so those bottom three you could definitely get in the later rounds. Definitely be sleeper picks. However, if Denver were to take a running back in the first or second round, Mike Washington Jr. would be my pick for that. With wide receiver in the early rounds, you got a couple different guys. You got Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana, really good wide receiver there. Casey Conception out of Texas A&M, Malachi Fields. My favorite for the Broncos to take, you could get him in probably the second or third round, is Chris Bell out of Louisville, or even Skylar Bell out of UConn. Those two really athletic, really explosive. Um, Both could come in and start right away. And I think um, both those guys are fairly similar to the way Troy Franklin plays. Um, and so that would be something there. And then you got Jacoby Lane out of USC. I'm not super high on him, but that could be an option there for the Broncos in the third round. Late rounds, if Denver's going to take a wide receiver, rounds 4 through 7, you got Chase Roberts out of BYU. I'd say he's like a fourth or fifth round projection. However, he does have a rape allegation that he's currently in court for. That'd probably tank his draft stock a little bit, where he'd either probably go sixth or seventh round. Kevin Coleman Jr. out of Missouri, I think he's a pretty good player. I think he's a bit underrated. Um, and so I think he'd probably be somebody who could come in as in like a role type of as a role player or whatever, coming off the bench in to give the guys breather. You got Xavier Thomas out of LSU, Josh Cameron out of Baylor. Josh Cameron didn't necessarily do the greatest, but at the same time, Baylor's quarterback was either really hot or really cold during the season. When Baylor's quarterback was on, everybody was feasting. When Baylor's quarterback was off, nobody was getting the ball. It was not fun to watch. Got Lewis Bond out of Boston College and Anthony Smith out of ECU, two of the smaller schools there. That where you got two guys who are pretty good receivers. Might take some time to develop if you draft them. But those are just some later round guys that I think Denver could draft. My favorite out of these guys would either be Chase Roberts or Kevin Coleman. I got to watch Chase Roberts' last 2 seasons because I watch a lot of BYU football. He's a really good receiver, very elusive. He's not super tall, but he's very elusive and very good yards after catch kind of guy. Um, for the tight ends, you got Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon, who I think will probably be gone when Denver picks. However, I do think Denver will probably try to make a trade to get him. However, if they can't do that, Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt would be my favorite. That's who I think Denver should pick first in the first round is Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt. He's a guy went under the radar because of how good Kenyon Sadiq was, but Eli Stowers is just as good as Kenyon Sadiq. Sadiq definitely not these those two guys aren't your traditional kind of um tight ends. They're not as tall as your what keep as your prototypical tight end. That Kenyon Sadiq who's 6'2", Eli Stowers is 6'3". Usually you want your tight ends to be 6'5", 6'6", so they're a little undersized for that position, but they're both really athletic, really strong. So both those guys I think would be really good. You got Max Clare out of Ohio State, Michael Trigg out of Baylor, Justin Jolly. He could be a mid-round pick if Denver decides to wait a little bit. Justin Jolly, really good tight end out of NC State. Got Oscar Delp out of Georgia. He's kind of like a Brock Bowers. He's just not as athletic as him. And so he's not going to be as good as Brock Bowers is on the Raiders. You got Riley Nowakowski out of Indiana, DJ Rogers out of TCU. Carson Ryan out of BYU is, I think, a dark horse pick. You could definitely get him in the sixth round, but he played insane for BYU. He's a great blocker, great pass catcher. He can do it all. He could definitely come in even as a late round pick. I think he would be better than Adam Troutman or Lucas Kroll, and he could come in and get some decent playing time even as a late round pick. And so if it were up to me, I would either go Eli Stowers, Justin Jolly, or Carson Ryan tight end position. Inside linebacker, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles definitely arguably the best linebackers in the draft. They're going to be long gone by the 30th pick. However, Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech is currently projected to be a third round pick, which really surprises me considering he was getting a little bit of Heisman consideration this year. Of course, it's really hard to win the Heisman as a defensive player, but he was really good for Texas Tech. He can cover, he can stop the run, he does it all. He was just all over the field for Texas Tech. Anytime somebody was getting tackled, he was there. Anytime the ball was up in the air, he was there. He just overall, I think he is the best inside linebacker in the draft this year. Even though Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese are getting more love than he is, I think Jacob Rodriguez is the best inside linebacker, and you could get him as like a mid-round pick, is what it's seeming like. You got Josiah Trotter out of Missouri, pretty good player. Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas. Lander Barton out of Utah. Lander Barton, I got watched him play when Utah and BYU played each other, and Lander Barton was just all over the field, making plays, getting intercept or making lots of tackles. He was there to make a lot of pass breakups. It was unfortunate that he got ejected for targeting in that game, which it wasn't a great call on the officials' part in that game, but it was unfortunately the right call. You got Wesley. I'm gonna screw up this guy's name so bad. Wesley Bizanthi out of Miami. I probably just screwed his name up, but I apologize. They were playing for a national championship this year. So, you get him in the late round. I put Jack Kelly out of BYU on here as well because he is a linebacker. However, BYU used him to blitz more often than not this past season, and so he wasn't much in coverage. He was more doing QB spies or coming in on a blitz during passing downs. But he was really good defending against the run. He was there to make almost every tackle, or he was at least in the camera on every tackle. He was always running to the ball. But yeah, that is the positions of need that Denver has, and those would be the people who I would have on my draft board if I was the Denver Broncos. With of course Eli Stowers being my number one guy on here, just because I don't think Kenyon Sadiq's going to be available, and I don't think Denver's going to be able to trade up to a spot to get Kenyon Sadiq. So Eli Stowers is who I think Denver should take with their first round pick. Um, appreciate you guys joining the video. Leave a comment who you think Denver should take, and we'll see you in the next video.